Okay, we're back, and today's daf is daf samech in Kiddushin. We are near the bottom of daf nun tet amabet. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get started. Go. So yesterday we concluded by noting a debate between Rav and Shmuel regarding a man who married a woman from now and after 30 days, where a second man came and married the woman during the 30-day period. So Rav says when the Mishnah says that both men are married and not married to her, it means forever. It means that there's always going to be this uncertainty associated with it. And Shmuel says no. When the Mishnah says that both men are married and not married to her, it means only until the 30 days expire, as she then becomes married only to the first. So the Gemara now wonders whether this debate is actually a debate among Tanaim, as we pick up in the middle of the 8th line from the bottom of Nun Tet Amabet. So, Ubeplukta Dahani Tanai. So let's say that Rav and Shmuel are arguing about the following point that is raised by the following Tanaim. The Tanya, we have a brisa. Mahayom lach or misa, when it comes to saying that a get is going to take effect. If I say that the get is taking effect from today and after death and after I die, so get ve'eno get, it's considered a valid and invalid get, meaning again it's uncertain. So divrei chachamim, Rebbe Omer kazeh get. Rebbe, however, says that it's a get. V'nema Rav halacha karabba. So as a result, we have the same essential debate that effectively Rav, who says that it's always uncertain, that's like the Chachamim. The Chachamim say from today and after my death is always uncertain, and whereas according to Rebbe, Rebbe is like Shmuel, or Shmuel is like Rebbe, because Shmuel says that we view this as a definitive condition, and once the condition takes effect, so then it's a valid action, and so as a result, it would be a valid get. So why now? So now the Gemara asks, "V'nema Rav halacha karabanan, v'nema Shmuel halacha karebi." Why do we need Rav and Shmuel to explicitly teach their laws in connection with marriage? Why not just say that the Rav agrees with the Rabbanan in that brisa, and Shmuel agrees with Rebbe? So tzricha, we actually need to teach it because you might not know that the halacha is the same in both cases, even though there is a parallel between the two situations. De'ilu amar Rav halacha karabanan, because if we just said that the Rav was, if Rav just said that the halacha was like the rabbis in connection with divorce, hava mina hasam d'rachuka ka'asi. That's because we're talking about coming to distance himself from the wife, and so as a result, we don't want to enable that distancing. We want to suggest that maybe it won't be. And so, aval haka de la karova kasi, when he's trying to marry her, so maybe in that situation, ema moda leila shmuel de tanahavi, maybe he'll agree that we're talking about that the language of from now and after 30 days is a definitive condition, and it's all one condition, and it isn't a retraction. And so therefore, he would agree with Shmuel, because after all, he wants to enable the coming close of the couple. The Amar Shmuel halacha karebi, and if we just had said that that Shmuel agrees with Rebbe, so hava mina, I would have thought hasam hu de ein get la'achar misa. That's only because there's no possibility of get after misa. Of course, it's got to be all one condition. I can't retract and just say, here's a get after I die. That by definition is not a valid get, because a get can't take effect after death. It has to be from now. So when you say from now and after death, by definition, it must be a single condition. Aval haka de yesh Kiddushin lachar lamed. There could be a Kiddushin that takes place after 30 days. And so as a result, maybe Ema Modi Leila Rav, maybe Shmuel would agree with Rav. So Tzrika, that's why we need to have both full statements, and both discussions. Amar Abaye. So Abaye now says, Ula Tamei Durav ba Echad Amar La. If somebody came and said to the woman, Harayat Mikudeshes Limi Akshav Lachar Lamid Yom, Uva Achar Amar Harayat Mikudeshes Limi Akshav Lachar Esrim Yom. And we turn to Samach Amid Aleph, Uba Achar Amar La, Harayat Mikudeshes Limi Akshav Lachar Asara Yamim. So we have three different men. One says you're married from today and after 30 days. Another one says you're married from today and after 20 days. And another one says you're married from today and after 10 days. So, mirishon umi achron tzricha get. So according to Abaye, you need to only get a get from the first one and the third one. Me'emsai ain't a tzricha get. You don't need one from the middle guy. Why? Manafshach. Because what's the possibility? If in fact this is actually a condition and it's all one line, well then the kamed kedusha, the first one is going to be the one that is married to her because he's the one who says from today and after 10 days. So his kedushin is the one that's going to take place first. Dahanach lav kedusha, and these other ones they'll never actually be married to her. And ichazara havi. But on the other hand, if in fact this is all a retraction and all that matters is the second line, so to basre kedusha, well then the last man is kedushin is valid. The tanan dahanach lav kedusha, and the other ones won't be a valid kedushin. So pshita, 1 second, isn't this obvious? That of course it's a simple application of Rav's teaching. So why did Abaye needed to teach it? Meaning, of course, only the first and the third have any possibility of being a valid marriage. I think I may have gotten that wrong. So just to back up a moment, if in fact it's all a condition, so then the person who says from now and after 30 days, because he was the first one to take to engage in the marriage, even though it won't be retroactive until after 30 days, he is the earliest in time. So when 30 days comes, it's going to go back to the earliest point in time, and nobody else will be able to have a valid marriage with him. Whereas, if in fact we assume that the statements are all retractions, well, then all that matters is 10 days going to come first, 20 days going to come first, or 30 days is going to come first. And so in that situation, the person who spoke last, namely the person who said 10 days, he's the one who's going to be married. So again, pshita, isn't that obvious? And though the Gemara explains, Ma'odatema, I might have thought that in fact, ha lishna mashma tana umashma chazara, that Rav's question of whether or not the language of from now and after 30 days was a retraction or was a single condition, I might have thought that both could be the truth. And so as a result, we have to be worried about each individual person's intention. And therefore, and therefore you would need a get from each of them. So Kamash Malan, Abaye tells us that no, you don't need a get from each of them. You only need a get from the first one and the third one. Okay, so now we're going to have Ula and Rabbi Asi each teaching something else in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Ula Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu Meya Tosfinba. Actually, even 100 different men can have their marriage take effect in her. V'chein Amar Rabbi Asi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu Meya Tosfinba. And similarly, Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. And what is that? What's the situation? Amar le Rav Masharshia Berei de Rav Ami le Rabbi Asi. So Rav Masharshia told Rabbi Asi, Asbara lach taima de Rabbi Yochanan. I'm going to tell you the reason. And significantly, the reason is not. You might have thought that the reason would just be that Rav's got an uncertainty, that we're uncertain about, or Rabbi Yochanan's uncertain about whether or not we mean the first, we mean retraction, or we mean a full condition, and each person gets viewed independently. But that is not what Masharshi is about to say. Rather, shavu nafshe kishirga delivne, that this is like a stack of bricks, and just as when you stack bricks, not each one overlaps completely, and so each one has a little space of its own. So too, each one has its own space, and so as a result, that's why we're going to allow it. So let's take a look in Rashi. Asabralach. It's not that he's going to say like that Rabbi Yochanan is thinking that the language has two implications. Umasafkale legabi high gavra b'tana legabi high b'chazara. That we're worried we're not, and we don't know whether this guy means a condition or that guy means to undo it. Im Kane lo shaykh lamisne tosin. The language of tosin implies of the each one having the marriage take hold of her. Then it would that wouldn't be the language that we would use to ain tfisa el be'echad, because if we actually knew each man's intention, there would only be one tfisa. There would only be one marriage. Mehen va'anan who delo yadinan, and it's only us that don't know hi ninhu which one of them it is. Tosin, but because we say that it's tosin, mashma desfira leishayesh but sad kedushin lekulo. So it seems like there's actual marriage to each and every one of them. Now you may be wondering, well, 1 second, what about the principle that we say that a woman can't be married to more than one man, and you can't marry half of a woman? Well, that's what Tosos asks. If we take a look in the Tosos afilu mea tosin we take a look down 1, 2, 3, 6 lines in the narrow lines of Tosos. V'im tomer amayam rinan hacha de mekudeshes v'ha amar la'el b'perakama ha'omer la'isha chatziach mekudeshesly, that I want to marry half of you, ain't a mekudeshes, that doesn't work. So v'yesh lomer dehasam hainu taima lefisha ain isha miskadeshes l'chatzayin, right? Because a woman can't be married in part. V'hu shir beguf ha'isha. And that some piece of her is not married. Aval hacha lo shir beguf ha'isha klum. There's nothing left over. Ela gomrin kulam. Rather, each and every one of the people in the list marries her. And so, what are we talking about? We're talking about where each one says. The first one says, "I'm going to marry you from today and after 100 days." Next one from today and after 99 days. Then 88, 98, and so on. And so each one of them has it, because the final day has not actually come. None of the days have yet arrived. So at that moment, all of them have some aspect of full marriage to this woman. And so that is the how the Gemara is viewing Rabbi Yochanan's reasoning. So now Masav Rav Chanina. So Rabbi Chanina is going to challenge Rabbi Yochanan's teaching, because we have a Mishnah in Gittin that says, it seems to contradict him. If I say from today and after I die, so get the eno get. It's a suffix get. It's an uncertain whether it's a valid get. And so when the husband then eventually dies, she has to perform chalitza with the brother, and she's not allowed to perform yibum. So Bishlam al Rab, according to Rab, Messiah lay. This seems to support his view, because it certainly seems like it's always uncertain. But l'Shmuel nami ha mani rabbanani, and according to Shmuel, it also can work, because even though it isn't the way Shmuel paskins, he could just say that this Mishnah follows the rabbis, because the rabbis agree with Rav, and or Rav agrees with the rabbis that it's always uncertain. V'anan to Amri Karebi, but he would say, I hold like Rebbe and not like this particular Mishnah. El Rabbi Yochanan to Amr Sheyurahabe. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that each and every one, there's an element that allows the marriage to take place with another person. means that there's something left over. And therefore, there must be something left over from this get. Meaning that if we say it's a get and it's if he says from today and after my death, so then it's not a full get. And because we have the principle, kol gittim de mishayerba below klumhu, that any get that leaves anything over is not going to be effective. So yibumim miyabim, he should be allowed to perform yibum. So the Gemara answers, Amarav, get lahotzi umisa lahotzi. No, we're going to combine the get. The reason is that we allow the get and the death to combine. Masha shir beget get gemarato misa. That whatever the get left over, so death finishes the job. So therefore, that's why we're going to say it still has an aspect to a valid get, and therefore it's an uncertain get. But and therefore that's why. But it's not definitely an invalid get. So Amrle Abaye says, 1 second, me dummy, can you have death and the get itself combine? They're not comparable. Are they really comparable? Because get motzia mirishos yavam misa machnasal erishos yavam. They go in opposite directions with respect to the deceased brothers. Brothers that the yavam the surviving brother, a get removes the woman from the surviving brother, whereas the death of the husband brings the widow into the connection with the yavam. So it can't be that that's the case. Ella Amar Abaye, so Abaye offers another explanation. Hasam time am I? I'm going to tell you the reason. Gezerah mishum mehayom imati hare zeget. That the concern is that if in fact we were to is that we are concerned about confusion between the case of mehayom umiachar meisi, where I say from now and after I die, versus from now if I die. Because from now, if I die, everybody agrees it's a valid get. The nigzar mehayom imeti tachlots. And so as a result, we have a decree that we're going to say from today. So now, so the point is that we're worried that if I say from now and after I die, and even though it's definitely not a good divorce because we've left something over, so therefore we should allow yibum. But we're worried that if we allow yibum, if the husband says from today and after I die, we might think that yibum would also be required in a case of from today if I die. But that's not true. From today if I die is definitely a valid get. So v'nigzar ma'ayom imati the tachlots. Well, 1 second. Well, if that's true, why not make the gzera in the other direction and also say that we need chalitza in the case of a person who says from today if I die? We know it's a valid get, but we might get people might be confused and think that also if from today and after my death, it would also be a valid get. Because that I might want in order to prevent people from thinking that the case of from today and after I die is identical to from today if I die. Big difference between if and. So im ata omer choletzes. So once the story, so the Gemara answers no, because if you say that we allow chalitza misyabemes, well then you require chalitza. Some people might think that you could have done yibum and would actually do yibum, and that would be a big problem because she's actually divorced. But hachanami, well, 1 second. So hachanami, well, 1 second. If that's true, why not be concerned about imata omer choletzes misyabemes in connection with the case of from now and after my death? Well, there tisyabim ein bekach plum. Well, we just answered that question because, in fact, if I say from now and after my death, then it isn't, in fact, a good get. So actually, yibum would be okay. So chashasha derabananhu. It's just a rabbinic concern that prevents us from doing ibum, and so therefore we can say you have to do chalitza when you say from today and after my death, and we say that you don't do anything from today if I die. So that is that discussion, and so now we're ready to continue with the next Mishnah, and the next Mishnah addresses other conditional marriages, focusing on money. So, Haomer leisha hareya mikudeshes li almanash etain lach matayim zuz. A man says, you're married to me on the condition I give you 200 zuz. Harei zo mikudeshes v'hu yitain. They're married and he needs to give it to her. Almanash etain lach mikan va'ad shloshim yom. If he says that I'm going to give it to you within 30 days, nasan la b'tok shloshim yom mikudeshes. If he gives it to her within 30 days, they're married. If not, then they're not married. If he says that I own 200 zuz, not about a gift, but that I have it. So they're married, but he's got to show that he has it. And if he says, I'm going to show you 200 zuz, then he has to show her 200 zuz. But if he shows her the money on the table, meaning if for example, he just goes over to a money changer and he shows the money that doesn't belong to him, she's not married. Because we'll see in the Gemara that the understanding is that when he says, I'm going to show you $200, 200 zuz, it means that I'm going to show you 200 zuz that belongs to me. So now the Gemara analyzes this and starts with the first case. Itmar, Rav Huna Amar, V'hu Yitain, and he should give it. Meaning that as soon as it is, and he should give it. That the Kiddushin takes effect immediately, as based on the fact that he performs when he gives the money at the future point in time. Rav Yehuda Amar likashayitain. No, the Kiddushin only takes effect when the money gets changed, when the money changes hand, and until the money changes hands, there is no Kiddushin, there is no retroactive aspect to it. So Rav Huna Amar v'hu yitin. So now we're going to explain it. Tanahavi, it's just a condition. Mikayim tana v'azil, and as soon as the condition is filled, then the Kiddushin takes effect retroactively. Rav Yehuda Amar Kilikashayitain. Laki Yahev Lahavu Kiddushay. That it's when he gives. The intention is when. That it's only effective when the Kiddush. That's when the Kiddushin takes effect, when he gives her. Hashda Mia Lo Hava Kiddushin. But at the moment, it would not yet be a Kiddushin. So my Binaihu, what's the difference between these two? So we given I had the Pashta Yada V'Kibla Kiddushin Ma'achar. If the woman between when the first man says, I'm going to give you, I want to marry you and I'm going to give you 200 zuz. So if somebody else comes between when he made that statement and when he gives the 200 zuz, according to Rav Huna, it's retroactive. And so as a result, he's married to the first person. But according to Rav Yehuda, who says that the marriage only takes effect when the gift gets given. So then, if somebody else snuck in and married her in the meantime, that second man will be married to her. So according to Rav Huna, the second man is not. It doesn't have a valid Kiddushin. Rav Yehuda have a Kiddushin. It is a valid Kiddushin according to Rav Huna. According to Rav Yehuda, excuse me. So Utna Nami Gabi Gittin Ki Hai Gavna. Now we had this similar discussion with respect to Gittin. Haomer Leisha Hareza Gitech Almanasha Titni Li Matayim Zuz. If a man says to a woman, here's your get on the condition that you give me 200 zuz, Hare Zum Gureshes Vihi Titain. They're divorced and she needs to give him the money. Itmar. So Rav Huna Amar Vihi Titain. She needs to give him the money, meaning that as soon as the money is given, it's effective retroactively. Rav Yehuda Amar Likashatitein. No, it's when she gives the money, that's when it takes effect. So Rav Huna Amar Behititain to Nahabi, again, it's a condition. Mikayemes Tanav Azla, he can fulfill the condition, or she can fulfill the condition, and then it's going to take effect. Rav Yehuda Amar L'Kashititain, and Rav Yehuda says no. When she gives the money, L'Kiyav Alei Huda Haviget. It's only when she gives it that's when it's a get. So Hashtamia Lo Haviget, and at the moment it's not a get. As we turn to Samacham and Bet. So my Benai, who again, what's the difference between the two? Ikavanayash is Kara Haget Osha Avad. If the get gets torn or is lost between between when the get is given and the condition is made, and when the payment is made from the woman to the man. So La Rav Huna have a get, because at the moment that the get was given, we go back to that moment, and it existed at that time, so it's a valid get. But La Rav Yehuda lo have a get. It's not a valid get because the get is not effective until the money changes hands. And at the time the money changes hands, the get is not in existence. So it can't work. So utsricha. And we need to teach both of these different disagreements. We need to have the dispute both with respect to Kiddushin and with respect to divorce. Because if I had only taught this with respect to Kiddushin, it's only in that case that Rav Huna would say that the transaction takes effect retroactively. Because of course we want to encourage the man and woman marrying each other. So as a result, we'll want that to happen retroactively. About Gerushin, but when it comes to divorce, maybe he would say something different. Ema Modi Lala Rev Yehuda. Maybe he would agree to Rev Yehuda that the get only takes effect when she makes the payment. The Itmar Bahach. And if the dispute was only said in connection with divorce, Bahaka Amar Rav Huna, that's where Rav Huna says that the get takes effect retroactively. Mishum de'ihu lo kasiv le lemitba. That's where, because the man is never going to be ashamed to ask the woman for the money for the divorce. And so that's why it can take effect retroactively, because we know that it's going to happen. But aval hacha de'ihi kasifa lemisbai. But when she needs to ask him for the money, so then Ema Modila Layla Rav Yehuda. Maybe he would agree to Rav Yehuda that because she might be bashful about asking him for the money, so as a result, maybe Rav Huna would agree that the Kiddushin only takes effect when he makes the payment and not retroactively. So Tricha, therefore we need to teach both. Okay, so sorry for not scrolling. And so now that we do that, so now the Gemara is going to ask a question on Rav Yehuda's position, pointing out that there seem to be two brisas that seem to contradict Rav Yehuda. So let's take a look. So Meisvei, Harezek Gitek, here's your get, Almanasha Titnili, Matayim Zuz, Apalpishin is Kara Haget, Osha Avad, Harezum Goreshes. That we see it specifically said that if a man says that here's your get on the condition that you give me 200 zuz, even if the get was torn or lost before she gave the money, it's still a divorce when the woman pays, because it takes effect retroactively. La'achar lo tenase, but she's not allowed to marry somebody else until she actually gives the zuz. So that shows that this is clearly retroactive, which contradicts Rav Yehuda and supports Rav Huna. Tanya, we got another brisa that again contradicts Rav Yehuda, because Amar la harezek gitek. If man says to his wife, "Here's your get," almanash titnili matayim zuz, on the condition that you give me 200 zuz, umes, and then he dies before the money is given to him, nasna. And then and then he dies. So nasna, if she gave the money to him before she died, ein zakukala yavam. There's no connection between her and the deceased husband's brothers. Lo nasna, but if she did not give it to him before he died, zakukala yavam. So then she's bound to the yavam. So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, no tenant la'achiv, ola aviv, ola echad min akrobim. She can still give it to any of the husband's relatives, and then she won't have any connection. She won't have a yibum relationship. She won't have to do yibum or chalitza. So ad kan lo pligi ella demar savar li below yorshi, that it seems like according to the Tanakama, it means when the husband says that you need to give me the 200 zuz, it means me and not my heirs. Umar Savar, whereas Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, afilu afilu liyorshe, that when I say me, I mean even to my heirs. So the kuli alma miutano have it, but everybody agrees that there's a condition. So the bottom line is that nobody is suggesting that this is actually that only when it takes effect later is it going to only when the money changes hands later is it going to be a get, but rather it's a get retroactively. So to Yov to the Rav Yehuda, isn't this a total refutation of Rabbi Yehuda? So no. Amar lak Rabbi Yehuda, Rebbe he. This is all Rebbe. To Amar of Huna, Amar Rebbe, Kola Omer Almanas, Ka Omer Me'achshav Dami. That anytime you have a condition, it's always as if it means from now. Upligi Rabbanan alay. And the rabbis disagree with Rebbe. Va'ana da Amrika Rabbanan. And I agree with the rabbis that when you say a condition, it does not necessarily mean from now. Okay. So now, so in second, so Rabbi Zera is going to ask the question. So Gufa, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rebbe, Kol Omer Almanas Ka Omer Me'achshav Dami. So we just noted that Rav Huna said in the name of Rebbe that anybody who says Almanas on the condition, it's as if one said from now, that meaning that it should take effect retroactively once the condition is fulfilled. So Amar Rabbi Zera, Ki Avinan Bevavel, Hava Amrinan, that when we were in Bavel, we used to say, Hada Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rabbi Kol Omer Almanas Ka Omer Me'achshav Dami, Pligi Rabbanan Alei, Ki Salik we always thought that the rabbis disagreed with that statement. But Kisalki Lahasam, when I went up to Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Asi, I found Rabbi Asi, the Yosef Amar Le Mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan, who was saying in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Hakol Modim Ba'omer Almanas, that everybody agrees that Almanas is Ka'omer Me'achshav Dami. It's as if you said from now. And lo nechelku ela mehayom la'achar misa. And the disagreement between Rebbe and the rabbis was only about the case of from today and after my death, where we're unsure whether the after my death was intended to undermine the condition of from today. So v'hatanya, and we taught in a brisa mehayom la'achar misa, get ve'eno get. Divrei chachamim, Rebbe Omer kazeh get. And so, and indeed, we have a brisa that specifically says exactly what we thought, that Rebbe and the Chachamim argue only in connection with Mihayom La'achar Misa. So doesn't this again? So how can Ula Rav Yehuda the Amar Baal Manas Nami Pligi? Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that the rabbis all that Rebbe and the Chachamim also disagree in connection with Almanas, why specifically say that you're disagreeing in connection with from today and after my death? Just tell us that they're disagreeing about Almanas. That would be a more significant disagreement. It would have a broader breadth. So Lahodiach Rebbe. So Rabbi Yochanan explains that no, it's in order to tell us the strength of Rebbe's leniency. That even in that situation, it's considered a get. Well, second, why not tell me the almanas disagreement in order to show the strength of the rabbis of the Rabbanan? So no, because in connection with saying that it's a get, then you are permitting this woman to remarry. When the rabbis are giving the strength of their position, the strength of their position is to be strict and to not allow the woman to remarry. And as we know, it takes more strength to be able to be lenient, and therefore that is why we specifically teach the debate between Rebbe and the Chachamim in connection with Mehayom al Achar Misa, and not in connection with almanas. So almanasha attain lach mikan. So now as we go to the next piece of our Mishnah, where we say that if I tell you that I'm going to marry you on the condition I give you money within the next 30 days, and if I don't, you're not married. Pshita, that's obvious. So ma'odatema lav tanahu. No, I might have thought that the 30 days is not really intended to be a condition. He's just trying to get himself motivated to get the money to her as soon as possible. So Kamash Milan, not so. We say that it's actually a condition, and therefore, if he doesn't do it, it's not a marriage. Almanasha yeshli matayim zuz. So now the next piece of the Mishnah says on the condition that I have 200 zuz, and Rashi says here the yeshlo. So and he has it, right? That's what the Gemara. That's what the Mishnah said. Mashma sheyesh edim sheyeshlo. So it must be that he has witnesses that he has it. Halav haki, without witnesses, ain't mekudeshes, but without witnesses, they're not married. Umuteris la'achar, and he would be permitted, and she would be permitted to marry somebody else. So now the Gemara asks, "V'necho shema yeshlo," and Rashi asks, "V'amai necho shema yeshlo." Why should that be? Would be worried that maybe, in fact, he just doesn't have the ability to prove it. But Otanya, and indeed, we have a brisa chashin and shema yeshlo. We do have a concern that maybe he has the money. So lo kasha haba kedushe vadai haba kedushe safek. So when we say that when we say in our Mishnah that in fact they're not married, it means that they're not married with a definitive marriage, but in fact they are married within an uncertain marriage. And that's exactly what the Bryce is telling us about. That when it comes to the Bryces, the Chashina and Shema Yeshlo, that we're worried that maybe he has the money. The point is that it makes it an uncertain Kiddushin. And therefore, if in fact she wanted to marry somebody else, she would need a divorce, and they would need a definitive marriage in order to be together. So Almanasha are Eich Masayim Zuz. Now the last case in our Mishnah was that he says that he's going to show 200 Zuz. So Tana, we learned in a brisa, Lonis Kavna El Liros Mishalo. The intent of a woman in connection with hearing that line of I'm going to show you 200 Zuz is that you're going to see money that belongs to the Gnan, that it's not just 200 zuz that belongs to anybody. And therefore, v'imhera la ala shulchan, if he shows her money on the table, ain't a she's not married. Well, pshita, that's kind of obvious. So lo tzrika de apal de naka dmei midveiska. That no, we're talking about a situation where even though maybe he's the money changer and he's holding the money on a business arrangement, meaning that people have given him money in order to use for his business. And as a result, he will be sharing the profits of that business with these people. So despite that fact, we're going to, and so despite the fact that this money is effectively at his disposal, it's an investment that people made in his business, and therefore he does not in fact own it, and that would not be a sufficient relationship to the money to allow him to say this is my money, and therefore that they would be married. And so as a result, it's not his money and they're not married. So that ends the discussion of monetary conditions, and tomorrow we will begin, God willing, with conditions that are associated with property issues. And so we'll see that hopefully tomorrow. So I apologize for not scrolling. So there we go. So stay tuned to tomorrow's daf.